December 1943. The deadliest winter of World War II. Allied forces have just landed in Italy. 400,000 soldiers are fighting their way north toward Rome. And somewhere behind enemy lines, 4 American women are about to disappear from history. The year is 2006. Amarillo, Texas. Catherine Harrison. Mitchell kneels in her grandmother's attic, her fingers bleeding from prying up a rusted floorboard. The funeral ended 3 hours ago. The house still smells like lilies and old grief. She almost missed it. A tin box wedged into darkness for 60 years. Inside, a leather journal, letters tied with ribbon, and a Purple Heart medal. Her grandmother never mentioned a medal. Never mentioned the war at all. Catherine opens the journal. Her grandmother's handwriting. Shaky, but clear. If you are reading this, I am dead. And the truth can finally be told. Her throat tightens. My name is Eleanor Harrison, First Lieutenant, Women's Army Corps, service number A742893. In December 1943, I was captured by German forces. What happened after that, my own government ordered me to never speak of, but some secrets need to be told. This is the story of me and women like me, the forgotten soldiers. Catherine's hands are trembling now. She turns the page. Spring 1942. Amarillo, Texas. 25-year-old Eleanor Harrison stood on the porch watching her father fix a fence. Thomas Harrison walked with a limp from Belleau Wood, shrapnel in his left leg, 24 years, and he never complained once. You want to go. He did not look up from his work. Ellie's chest tightened. How did you know? Because you are my daughter. He straightened slowly. Gray eyes meeting gray eyes. You have been staring at that radio every night like it owes you money. You want to fight. They are recruiting women. The Women's Army Corps. I can do communications. I know Morse code. I know machinery. Robert taught me everything before he shipped out. Thomas was quiet. He set down his hammer, walked to her. His calloused hands gripped her shoulders. I have seen war, Ellie. I know. No, you do not. His voice cracked, just barely. I have seen boys younger than you torn apart by artillery. I have held men while they screamed for their mothers. I still hear them. Every night, I still hear them. Ellie did not look away. And I will hear them too if I stay here doing nothing while my brothers fight. Long silence. Wind moving through wheat fields. Promise me something. Anything. Come home. His grip tightened. No matter what happens, no matter what they do to you, you come back to this house. You hear me. Promise me. Ellie felt her eyes burn. I promise, Daddy. I will come home. She did not know that promise would become the only thing keeping her alive. Fort Des Moines, Iowa. Summer 1942. 8 weeks of basic training. Ellie learned to march, salute, and shoot. But her real talent was the radio room, one of only 12 women in the entire military trained to break codes. Quiet, watchful, eyes that missed nothing. I do not talk much, but I listen. That is more useful anyway. Betty Jean Morrison, 22, Atlanta. Senator's daughter, blonde curls, soft accent. Everyone assumed she was fragile. Everyone was wrong. My daddy said women belong in the kitchen, so I joined the army just to prove him wrong. Turns out spite is excellent motivation. 4 women, 4 corners of America. They did not know it yet, but they were being woven together for something none of them could imagine. The last day of training. A lecture on prisoner protocol. The instructor held up a small book. The Geneva Convention. If captured, you give name, rank, serial number, nothing else. You are entitled to humane treatment. Medical care, Red Cross communication. This is international law. All parties must follow it. Ellie wrote down every word. She believed every word. December 1943, Italy. 15 miles south of Monte Cassino. Ellie had been in country for 2 months. The communications center was an old Italian villa. Stone walls, high windows, the smell of dust and war. Every night artillery thunder rolled across the hills. Every night Ellie lay awake thinking about her father, about Texas, about home. She wrote letters she could not send, kept a small journal, counted the days. Then came January 15th, 1944. Night shift. Ellie sat at her station, headphones on, pencil moving. A routine transmission from a forward unit. Nothing unusual. Then the sirens, red lights, screaming alarms, boots pounding down corridors. German tanks, they broke through! Ellie ripped off her headphones. Through the window, explosions bloomed against the northern sky, orange and white, getting closer. She found Dot in the hallway, Frankie right behind her, Betty Jean stumbling out of the barracks, still pulling on her jacket. "South exit," Dot shouted. "Evacuation trucks!" Oh, they ran, down the corridor, through the kitchen, out the back door into the courtyard, and stopped. German soldiers, 8 of them. Rifles raised, flashlights blinding. "Halt!" Ellie's hands went up. Her heart was beating so hard she could taste it. A figure stepped through the light, tall, immaculate uniform, the smell of expensive cologne cutting through smoke and cordite. American women. His English was perfect, almost elegant. In uniform. How far civilization has fallen. "We are military officers." Ellie's voice did not shake. She would not let it shake. "Under the Geneva Convention we are entitled to—" He laughed, soft, almost gentle. "The Geneva Convention." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see his eyes. Gray, cold, clinical. "An agreement between men, about men, for men." He circled her slowly, studying her like a specimen. "You are not men, Lieutenant. You are women who have forgotten their place. You have stepped outside the natural order, and that places you in a category that Geneva does not address." Ellie felt ice spreading through her veins. "My name is Colonel Werner Chrysler, SS, and you will be my guests for some time." He smiled. "I promise you, this will be memorable." Guards moved forward, rough hands, rope biting into wrists. As they bound her, Ellie looked into Chrysler's eyes, and she saw something that made her stomach turn. Excitement, not cruelty, not hatred. Excitement, the excitement of a scientist about to begin an experiment. They were not prisoners of war. They were subjects. The truck drove east through the night. 4 women in darkness, hands bound, mouths gagged. No one spoke. No one could. Ellie counted her breaths. In, out, in, out. She thought about her father, about the promise, about Texas wheat fields golden in summer light. "I will come home. I will come home. I will come home." Dawn. The truck stopped. Doors opened. Light flooded in like an assault. Gray walls, barred windows, barbed wire. No signs, no markings, nothing to indicate this place existed. Einrichtung 9, Facility 9. One of 15 secret detention centers built specifically for women prisoners. They were marched inside. Long corridors, fluorescent lights. The smell of disinfectant and something else. Something metallic. A door opened. A large room. Tile floor. Harsh lights. And a woman waiting. Stocky. Blonde hair pulled tight. SS uniform stretched across broad shoulders. Pale blue eyes that swept over them like they were cattle at auction. Helga Brenner. "Strip." Dot stepped forward. "We are military officers, under the Geneva Convention." Brenner moved fast, faster than her size suggested. Her palm cracked across Dot's face. Dot hit the floor. Blood sprayed from her lip. "There is no Geneva here." Brenner's voice was flat, mechanical. "There are no officers here. There are only women who forgot their place. You will remember. I will make sure of it. She nodded to the guards. If they will not undress themselves, help them. What happened next cannot be described, should not be described. But Eleanor Harrison would spend 60 years trying to forget it, and failing. That night, a cell, concrete floor, no blankets, no light. Dot lay curled against the wall, still shaking. Frankie sat motionless, eyes fixed on nothing. Betty Jean had not stopped trembling since they were thrown in here. Ellie sat with her back against cold stone. Every part of her hurt. Every part of her wanted to scream. But she did not scream. She thought about her father, about the porch, about his hands on her shoulders. Come home, no matter what. Come home. They want us to break. Her voice came out raw, barely human. Dot looked up, eyes red, lips swollen. They want us to forget who we are. That is how they win. We forget. Silence. I will not forget. Ellie's voice grew stronger. I am First Lieutenant Eleanor Harrison, United States Women's Army Corps, service number A742893, Amarillo, Texas. She looked at Dot, waiting. Long pause. Then Dot's voice, shaking but clear. First Lieutenant Dorothy Kowalski, Women's Army Corps, service number B384217, Chicago, Illinois. Frankie next. Quiet, precise. First Lieutenant Francis Chen, service number C956782, San Francisco, California. And Betty Jean, small as a breath. But there. First Lieutenant Betty Jean Morrison, service number D273954, Atlanta, Georgia. 4 voices in the darkness. 4 women refusing to disappear. They did not know that other cells held other women. British pilots, French resistance fighters, Polish nurses. They did not know that this whispered ritual would spread through the facility like fire. They did not know that it would drive Chrysler and Brenner to madness. They only knew this. They were still soldiers, and soldiers do not break. Far away in Amarillo, Thomas Harrison sat beside his radio. He did not know his daughter had been captured. He would not know for months. But that night, staring at the Texas stars, he felt something cold settle in his chest. He closed his eyes. Wherever you are, Ellie, remember what you promised me. In a concrete cell 3,000 miles away, his daughter whispered her name into the darkness and held on. But here is what none of them knew. Colonel Chrysler had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. He had designed a system, a protocol, tested, refined, perfected. Protocol 27, a scientific method to break women who dared to be soldiers. And Ellie was about to discover exactly what that meant. In Part 2, you will learn the horrifying details of Protocol 27. You will see how these women were systematically targeted. And you will witness the moment when Eleanor Harrison made a choice that would haunt her for 60 years. Some of them survived. Some of them did not. All of them were silenced. Until now. December 1943. Facility 9. 4 American women captured behind enemy lines, stripped of uniforms, stripped of dignity, but not broken. In a frozen cell, they whispered their names into darkness. First Lieutenant Eleanor Harrison, service number A742893, Amarillo, Texas, a promise to her father, a refusal to disappear. But Colonel Werner Chrysler had spent 2 years preparing for women exactly like her. Protocol 27, a classified SS program designed to systematically destroy female prisoners, not through brute force, through science, through psychology, through the methodical dismantling of identity itself. Over the next 15 months, 500 women would pass through facilities like this one. British pilots, French resistance fighters, American nurses, Polish couriers, women who dared to fight. The survival rate was 31%. Eleanor Harrison would become one of the survivors, but survival would cost her things she did not know she could lose. And this is where the real nightmare began. The first week at Facility 9 established the rhythm of hell. 0500 hours. Guards kicked open cell doors, prisoners dragged to the courtyard, forced to stand at attention in freezing darkness. Roll call lasted 2 hours. Anyone who collapsed was beaten. Anyone who spoke was beaten. Anyone who looked a guard in the eye was beaten. Ellie learned to stare at a point 6 inches above the horizon. She learned to lock her knees without fainting. She learned to count her heartbeats to stay conscious. 1, 2, 3, 4. I will come home. 5, 6, 7, 8. I will come home. The food was calculated cruelty. Thin soup, moldy bread. Just enough calories to prevent death. Never enough to prevent weakness. Within 2 weeks, Ellie's uniform dress hung loose on her frame. Her cheekbones cut sharp against her skin. But the physical deprivation was not the point. The point was the processing sessions. Chrysler called them interviews. They happened at random hours. Guards would pull a woman from her cell without warning, drag her down long corridors, into a room with bright lights and a single chair. Chrysler would be waiting, immaculate uniform, coffee steaming on his desk, sometimes classical music playing softly. Mozart, Beethoven, the sounds of civilization. Sit down, Lieutenant Harrison. Ellie sat. Her wrists were not bound. The door was not locked. This was part of the technique. The illusion of choice, the illusion of civility. How are you feeling today? Name, rank, serial number. Chrysler smiled. He had a patient smile. The smile of a man with infinite time. You know, I have read your file extensively. Top of your training class. Morse code proficiency exceptional. Father a war veteran. 2 brothers currently serving. He opened a folder. Robert is in the Pacific. William in England. You must worry about them. Ellie said nothing. Her hands trembled in her lap. She pressed them against her thighs. I am not asking for military secrets, Lieutenant. Your information is months old. Useless. He leaned forward. I am asking because I am genuinely curious. What drives a woman like you? You had options. You could have stayed home, married, had children, lived safely. Instead, you chose this. Silence. Was it patriotism, adventure? Perhaps something to prove to your father? Ellie felt the hook sliding under her skin. He was not interrogating her. He was dissecting her. Name, rank, serial number. Chrysler nodded slowly. Very well. We have time. He pressed a button on his desk. The door opened. Helga Brenner walked in. Behind her, 2 guards dragging Dorothy Kowalski. Dot's face was bruised. Her lips split open again. She had been pulled from her cell an hour ago. Ellie did not know where they had taken her. Now she knew. Your friend has been uncooperative, Chrysler said. Perhaps you can help her understand the benefits of conversation. Dot's eyes met Ellie's. In that look, don't. Whatever they want. Don't give them anything. Brenner forced Dot to her knees. I will ask you again, Lieutenant Harrison. Why did you join the military? Ellie's throat closed. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Name, rank, serial number. Chrysler sighed, nodded to Brenner. What happened next lasted 3 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. Ellie was not allowed to close her eyes. She was not allowed to look away. When it was over, Dot lay curled on the floor, breathing, alive, but something in her eyes had dimmed. Tomorrow we will talk again, Chrysler said. Perhaps you will be more forthcoming. Guards dragged Ellie back to her cell. She did not speak. She did not cry. That night in the darkness, Dot's voice came through the wall. Thin, broken, but there. Don't blame yourself. Ellie pressed her palm against cold concrete. I should have said something. Anything. No. Dot's voice hardened. That is what they want. They want us to break for each other. That is the whole point. If you talk, they win. If I talk, they win. The only way we win is if nobody talks. Silence. Ellie, listen to me. Whatever they do to me tomorrow or the next day or the day after that, it is not your fault. It is theirs. Only theirs. Promise me you will remember that. Ellie's eyes burned. I promise. Good. Now, what is your name, soldier? Ellie almost laughed. Almost. First Lieutenant Eleanor Harrison, Women's Army Corps, service number A742893. Damn right it is. But Chrysler was adapting. By the third week, he understood that direct pressure was not working. These women had been trained. They had protocols. They supported each other. Standard interrogation techniques bounced off their solidarity like bullets off armor. So he changed tactics. February 1944. A new phase began. Chrysler called it psychological restructuring. The prisoners called it something else. They called it the breaking. It started with isolation. Women were separated from cellmates, moved to individual cells. No contact, no communication. The whispered roll calls at night became impossible. Ellie spent 14 days alone. No human voice except Brenner's during inspections. No human touch except guards' hands dragging her to processing. The silence was worse than the beatings. She talked to herself, recited her name, her serial number, her father's address, the names of her brothers, the color of Texas wheat in summer. She talked to the walls, to the ceiling, to the rats that sometimes scratched in the corners. On day 10, she started talking to her mother. I am still here, Mama. I have not forgotten. You said I could do anything. Remember, you said, do not let anyone tell me otherwise. The walls did not answer. On day 12, she heard screaming from somewhere in the facility. A woman's voice. She did not recognize it. The screaming went on for an hour, then stopped. Silence again. On day 14, guards came for her. Not to Chrysler's office, somewhere new. A different wing of the facility. A room she had never seen. Inside a table. Medical equipment. A man in a white coat she did not recognize. And Chrysler, standing in the corner. Watching. Always watching. Lieutenant Harrison, this is Dr. Hoffman. He will be conducting some tests. What kind of tests? Chrysler's smile did not reach his eyes. Research. Nothing more. Your contribution to science. Ellie's stomach turned to ice. I am a prisoner of war. Under the Geneva Convention, medical experiments are prohibited. Yes. Chrysler stepped closer. But you are not a prisoner of war, Lieutenant. You are a female combatant, a category that Geneva does not recognize. Legally speaking, you do not exist. He nodded to Dr. Hoffman. Begin. What happened in that room was documented in files that would not surface until 2001. Exposure tests, stress response measurements, the systematic mapping of psychological breaking points. Eleanor Harrison was subject 17. She did not break that day, or the next, or the next. But she came close. March 1944, 6 weeks into captivity. Ellie had lost 22 pounds. Her hair was falling out in clumps. She had not slept more than 3 consecutive hours in a month. And then something changed. A new prisoner arrived. British, a pilot. Margaret Crawford, 24 years old, shot down over France. Maggie was placed in the cell next to Ellie's. The isolation protocols had been relaxed slightly. Chrysler was trying a new approach, mixing prisoners from different nations, studying how they interacted. He did not understand what he had just done. That first night, Ellie heard tapping on the wall. Morse code. She had not used it in weeks. Her mind was foggy, slow, but her fingers remembered. Tap, 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 tap. H-E-L-L-O. Ellie pressed her ear against cold stone. Tap, 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 tap. W-H-O. She tapped back. Her name. her unit, her country. Long pause. Then NOTALONE. Tears streamed down Ellie's face. She did not wipe them away. NOTALONE. Within a week, the tapping network spread. Frankie Chen, the cryptographer, developed a simplified code. Faster, harder for guards to detect. Messages passed from cell to cell. Names, encouragement, information. The women were communicating again. Chrysler noticed. He increased patrols, punished anyone caught tapping, moved prisoners randomly to disrupt connections. But the network adapted. Coughs became signals. Scratches on walls became messages. The women developed a language the Germans could not decode, because Frankie Chen was smarter than anyone Chrysler had on staff. April 1944. Colette Moreau arrived. French resistance, 32 years old. Captured after 2 years of smuggling Allied pilots across the Pyrenees. Her husband had been shot by the Gestapo in front of her. She had not broken then. She would not break now. Colette brought something the others lacked. Experience with German methods. She had seen interrogation techniques before. She knew their patterns. "They work in cycles," she whispered during a rare moment when guards were distracted. "Pressure. Then release. They give you hope. Then take it away. The hope is the weapon, not the pain." Ellie absorbed every word. "How do we fight it?" Colette's dark eyes glittered. "We give each other hope they cannot take. We become each other's release. They control everything else, but they cannot control what we mean to each other." That night, the whispered roll call returned. Not just names and serial numbers now. Stories. Memories. Plans for after the war. Dot talked about the bakery she would open in Chicago. Pierogi and babka. Her grandmother's recipes. Frankie described San Francisco fog, the sound of cable cars, the smell of the ocean. Betty Jean whispered about proving her father wrong, going to law school, becoming a senator herself. Maggie painted pictures of English gardens, tea with cream, rain on cottage roofs. And Ellie talked about Texas, wheat fields golden at sunset, her father's hands on her shoulders, the promise she made on the porch. Chrysler was losing. He did not understand why. His methods were proven. His techniques were scientific. Everything was calibrated perfectly. But he had made one critical error. He assumed that women, when isolated and degraded, would turn on each other. His research predicted competition, betrayal, the breakdown of social bonds under pressure. Instead, these women did the opposite. They became a unit, a sisterhood forged in hell, each woman drawing strength from the others, each woman refusing to break because breaking would mean betraying her sisters. Protocol 27 had a fatal flaw. It was designed by men who did not understand women at all. May 1944. Chrysler requested a meeting with his superiors in Berlin. His reports had become increasingly frustrated. The female prisoners were not responding to established protocols. Alternative methods were required. Himmler himself reviewed the request. The response came back in 3 words. Increase the pressure. Chrysler obeyed. The next phase was worse than anything before. Night sessions. Prisoners dragged from cells at random hours. Returned broken and silent. Some did not return at all. Betty Jean Morrison was taken on a Tuesday night. She came back Wednesday morning. She could not walk. She could not speak. Her eyes stared at nothing. For 3 days, she did not respond to anyone. Not to Dot's gentle nursing. Not to Ellie's whispered encouragement. Not to Frankie's coded messages. On the 4th night, Ellie heard something through the wall. Soft, barely audible. First Lieutenant Betty Jean Morrison, service number D273954, Atlanta, Georgia. Over and over, like a prayer, like a lifeline. Betty Jean was still in there, still fighting, still remembering who she was. And if she could hold on, they all could. June 1944. News filtered into the facility through new prisoners. Allied forces had landed in Normandy. The invasion had begun. Germany was losing. For the first time in 6 months, Ellie felt something like hope. Real hope. But Chrysler felt it too. And desperate men do desperate things. The pace of processing sessions increased. Prisoners who had been stable for weeks suddenly cracked. The screaming at night became constant. And then Chrysler made a decision that would haunt Ellie for 60 years. He called her into his office. Same room, same Mozart playing softly, same coffee steaming on his desk. But something was different. His immaculate uniform was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. The clinical calm was cracking. "Lieutenant Harrison?" His voice was strained. "I have a proposition for you." Ellie sat, said nothing. "The war is changing. We both know this. Germany's position is shifting." He folded his hands on the desk. "I am a practical man. I can be practical about your future. What do you want? Information, not military secrets. Something simpler." He leaned forward. "Your friends, their psychological profiles, their breaking points, the things they whisper to each other at night. You tell me what I need to know, and I will ensure your comfort for the remainder of your stay. Better food, private quarters, medical care." He paused. "Refuse and I will select one of your companions for intensive processing, starting tomorrow. Every day until you change your mind." Ellie's blood turned to ice. She thought about Dot, about Frankie, about Betty. Jean barely recovered from her last session. About Maggie, who had become her closest friend. About Colette, who had given them all the tools to survive. She thought about her father, about the promise. She thought about what kind of person she would become if she said yes. "Name." Her voice did not shake. "Rank. Serial number." Chrysler's face went rigid. "You will regret this, Lieutenant." "Maybe." Ellie stood. She did not ask permission. "But I will still be able to look at myself in the mirror. Can you say the same?" For a moment, something flickered in Chrysler's gray eyes. Something almost human. Then it was gone. "Take her back, and bring me the British pilot." Guards grabbed Ellie's arms. She did not resist. As they dragged her toward the door, she turned her head. "One more thing, Colonel." Chrysler looked up. "We are going to win this war, and when we do, there will be a reckoning. For all of this, for every woman in this place. History will remember what you did here." Chrysler smiled. That cold, clinical smile. "History is written by the victors, Lieutenant, and your government will want to forget you ever existed." He was right about that. But he was wrong about everything else. That night, Maggie Crawford was taken for intensive processing. She was gone for 36 hours. When she returned, she could barely whisper, but the first thing she said was her name. Flight Officer Margaret Crawford, Air Transport Auxiliary, Yorkshire, England. And Ellie knew. They were going to survive. All of them. Whatever it took. But here is what none of them knew. Across Europe, Allied forces were closing in. The war would end within a year. Liberation was coming. But liberation would bring its own betrayal. Because when American soldiers finally broke down the gates of Facility 9, they would not find heroes to celebrate. They would find an embarrassment to bury. In Part 3, you will witness the liberation that was not a liberation, the homecoming that was not a homecoming, and the 60-year conspiracy of silence that erased these women from history. The Germans tried to break them and failed. Their own country would succeed where the Nazis could not. And the true horror of Eleanor Harrison's story was only beginning. December 1943. 4 American women captured behind enemy lines. 15 months in Facility 9. Protocol 27. psychological torture designed to break female soldiers, isolation, degradation, experiments documented in files that would stay classified for 60 years. But Eleanor Harrison and her sisters did not break. They built a network. Morse code through walls, coughs as signals, names whispered in darkness. A sisterhood forged in hell that Colonel Werner Chrysler could not shatter. By June 1944, Allied forces had landed in Normandy. The tide was turning. Germany was losing. And inside Facility 9, the women could feel it. Hope crept through concrete walls like sunlight through cracks. Liberation was coming. But here is what none of them knew. Liberation would bring its own nightmare. Their own government would do what the Nazis could not. And the true betrayal was still ahead. The final months of Facility 9 were chaos wrapped in cruelty. As Allied forces pushed deeper into Europe, the SS scrambled to cover their tracks. Trucks arrived at night, files loaded, equipment dismantled. The machinery of torture being packed away like furniture from a house being abandoned. Chrysler grew desperate. His scientific detachment cracked. The man who once quoted Mozart while ordering experiments now paced his office at 3 a.m., chain-smoking burning documents personally. Ellie watched through her cell window. Orange flames dancing against darkness. Paper curling to ash. Evidence disappearing. "They are scared," Maggie whispered one night. Her voice was stronger now. Something had changed in her after the 36-hour session. Not broken. Hardened. "They know what is coming." "Will they kill us?" Betty Jean asked. She had not fully recovered. Probably never would. But she was still there, still fighting. Colette shook her head. "Dead prisoners are evidence. Living prisoners can be bargained. They will keep us alive." She was right, and wrong. January 1945. New orders arrived from Berlin. Himmler himself. The female prisoner program was to be terminated. Not the prisoners. The program. All records destroyed. All personnel reassigned. All facilities erased from existence. Facility 9 would officially never have existed. Chrysler called a final staff meeting. Ellie learned this later from documents discovered decades after the war. His words were recorded by an aide who did not destroy his personal notes. "What we have accomplished here must be preserved. Not in files that can be captured. In our minds. The research continues after the war, under different flags if necessary." He was already planning his escape, already imagining a future where his expertise would be valuable to someone. He was right about that too. February 1945. The women were moved. Trucks again. Blindfolds. Hours of driving through winter darkness. They ended up at a smaller facility. 30 women now. The survivors of 15 months. Out of the original 60 at Facility 923 had died. 7 had been transferred to unknown locations, never seen again. 30 remained. Ellie counted them obsessively. Dot, Frankie, Betty Jean, Maggie, Colette, 25 others whose names she had memorized through walls, whose stories she had collected in the darkness. Maria Santos, Portuguese resistance, captured in Lisbon. Anna Kowalczyk, Polish courier, captured in Warsaw. Ingrid Larsen, Norwegian nurse, captured in Oslo. 30 women, 30 stories, 30 reasons to survive. The new facility had no name, no signs. Just concrete walls and barbed wire in the middle of frozen farmland. Guards were fewer now, younger. Some barely 18. Boys in uniforms, too big for their shoulders. The war was dying. Everyone could feel it. March 1945. American artillery. Distant at first, then closer, rumbling like summer thunder across the frozen plains. The guards grew nervous. Discipline collapsed. One night, 3 of them simply walked away. dropped their rifles and disappeared into darkness. Brenner remained. Of course she did. Standing rigid in her SS uniform while everything crumbled around her. On March 28th, she gathered the prisoners in the courtyard. Full formation. One last time. "The situation has changed," she announced. Her voice was flat, mechanical as always. "You will be moved again tomorrow. Further east." Further east meant Soviet territory. The women knew what that meant. Different captors. Same nightmare. Or worse. Ellie stepped forward. She did not ask permission. "No." Brenner's pale eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "I said no." Ellie's voice did not shake. 15 months of hell had burned away everything except steel. "We are not going east. We are staying here. The Americans are coming, and when they arrive, we will tell them everything." Brenner moved fast. Her hand cracked across Ellie's face. Ellie did not fall. She did not flinch. She smiled. "That is the last time you touch any of us." Behind her, 30 women stepped forward. Together. A wall of skeletal bodies and burning eyes. Brenner looked at them. Looked at her remaining guards. 4 boys. 18 years old. Rifles trembling in their hands. Something shifted in her face. The first crack Ellie had ever seen. "You think this changes anything?" Brenner's voice wavered. "You think they will believe you? You think anyone will care what happened to women who forgot their place?" "Maybe not," Colette answered, her French accent sharp as a blade. "But we will know. And you will know. And you will spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder." Brenner turned and walked away. The guards followed. No shots, no final cruelty. Just footsteps fading into darkness. The women were alone. April 3rd, 1945. EO 600 hours. Ellie woke to the sound of engines, different from German vehicles, heavier, the growl of American trucks. She ran to the window, dust rising on the road, olive drab vehicles, white stars on the doors. "They are here," her voice broke. "They are here." The compound erupted. Women running, screaming, crying, pounding on doors that were no longer locked. Ellie burst outside. Cold morning air hit her lungs like salvation. A jeep pulled through the gates first. 2 soldiers in the front. Young faces. American faces. The driver saw them and slammed the brakes. "Holy Christ!" His voice carried across the courtyard. "Medic! We need medics now!" More vehicles poured in. Soldiers jumping out, rifles ready, then lowering as they saw what was waiting for them. 30 women, skeletal, barefoot, wearing rags that had once been dresses. Standing in formation, a sergeant approached, maybe 25. Illinois accent. His face went pale. "Ma'am, are you American?" Ellie straightened her spine. She weighed 83 pounds. She had not seen a mirror in 15 months, but she stood like a soldier. "First Lieutenant Eleanor Harrison, United States Women's Army Corps, service number A742893. Her voice cracked. "We are soldiers. All of us." The sergeant's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, ma'am. You certainly are." Medics swarmed forward. Blankets, water, gentle hands for the first time in over a year. Ellie watched her sisters being carried to trucks wrapped in warmth, spoken to like human beings. She thought about her father, about the porch in Amarillo, about the promise. "I will come home. I will come home. I will come home." She had survived. She wept. For the first time since capture. Deep, racking sobs that shook her entire body. A medic held her, let her cry. "It is over," he said. "You are safe now." He was wrong. The first sign came at the field hospital. The women were separated from male POWs immediately. Different ward, different building. Armed guards at the door. For your protection, the commanding officer explained. For your privacy. Ellie accepted this. It made sense. They were women. They had been through trauma. Privacy was reasonable. But then the questions started. Not medical questions. Not debriefing questions. Different questions. A man in civilian clothes arrived on day 3. No uniform. No rank insignia. Just a gray suit and cold eyes. Lieutenant Harrison, I am from Army Intelligence. We need to discuss your captivity. Ellie told him everything. Every detail. The processing upon arrival. The isolation protocols. Protocol 27. Chrysler's experiments. Brenner's cruelty. The documents she saw burned. The research she heard discussed. The man took notes. His face revealed nothing. When she finished, he closed his notebook. Lieutenant, what I am about to tell you is classified. You are not to repeat it to anyone. Do you understand? Yes. Good. He leaned forward. There will be no official record of what happened to you. No prosecution of the individuals involved. No public acknowledgement of these facilities. Ellie's blood turned to ice. What? The program you experienced was unusual. Its existence raises questions that the Army is not prepared to answer publicly. Questions about the treatment of female personnel. Questions about the adequacy of Geneva Convention protections. Questions that could undermine recruitment efforts for years. You want us to stay silent. I want you to understand the situation. His voice hardened. You have 2 options. Sign a confidentiality agreement and receive an honorable discharge with full benefits. Or refuse and face a military tribunal for insubordination. Insubordination, I was a prisoner. You were captured because your unit failed to follow evacuation protocols. That failure is documented. A court-martial would be unpleasant. Ellie stared at him. 15 months of torture. And now this. The men who did this to us, Chrysler, Brenner, the others, they just walk away. The man's expression did not change. That is not your concern. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw something. She wanted to wrap her hands around his throat and squeeze until he understood what she had survived. Instead, she asked, How long? Excuse me. How long do we stay silent? The classification is indefinite. You will carry this to your grave. Silence. And if I refuse? The man stood, brushed off his suit. Then you will discover that there are worse things than German prison camps, Lieutenant. I advise you to make the wise choice. He walked out. Ellie sat alone in the hospital room. White walls, clean sheets. The smell of disinfectant instead of blood. She had survived Chrysler, survived Brenner, survived Protocol 27. And now her own country was asking her to pretend none of it happened. She thought about her father, about the promise. Come home, no matter what. Come home. She signed the papers. They all did. One by one, the survivors were brought before intelligence officers. One by one, they were given the same choice: silence or destruction. 30 women signed away their stories. Maggie Crawford signed in her hospital bed. Her hands shook so badly the ink smeared. I did not survive 15 months just to let them bury me in paperwork, she told Ellie afterward. I signed, but I will never forget, and someday, somehow, the truth will come out. Colette Moreau signed with a face like stone. They are protecting war criminals. This I know, but I am too tired to fight anymore. Not now. Maybe not ever. Dot Kowalski signed while crying. I wanted to tell my mother. I wanted her to know what her daughter survived. Now I cannot even do that. Betty Jean Morrison signed without a word. She had barely spoken since liberation. The girl from Atlanta who joined the WAC to prove something to her father would never be the same. Frankie Chen signed with the same quiet precision she brought to everything. I memorized everything, she whispered to Ellie. Every name, Every date, every detail. They can classify paper. They cannot classify what is in my head. Within 6 weeks, all 30 survivors were discharged and sent home. Scattered across America. Britain, France, Poland, Norway. No records followed them. No medals were awarded. No stories were told. They simply disappeared. As if Facility 9 never existed. As if Protocol 27 was never implemented. As if 500 women were never tortured in 15 secret camps across Nazi Germany. The Army got what it wanted. Clean files, no complications, no difficult questions. But the Army did not understand something important. These women had spent 15 months learning to resist, learning to remember, learning to wait. They could wait longer. July 1945, Amarillo, Texas. Ellie stood on the porch of her father's farmhouse, the same porch where she made her promise 3 years ago. Thomas Harrison sat in his rocking chair, older, grayer, his limp worse than before. He had not asked questions, not once since she came home. He simply held her, let her sleep, made her breakfast, sat with her on the porch watching wheat fields turn gold in summer light. "Daddy." "Yes, Ellie. I kept my promise. I came home." "I know." Silence. Wind through wheat. "But I am not the same." Thomas reached over, took her hand, his calloused palm warm against her thin fingers. "Nobody who sees war comes home the same. I did not. Your brothers will not. You will not. I cannot tell you what happened. They made me sign papers. If I talk, then do not talk." His grip tightened. "You are home. That is enough. Whatever you carry, you do not carry it alone. I am here. This house is here. Texas is here. Whenever you need us." Ellie felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I am so angry, Daddy. All the time. I am so angry I feel like I am going to explode." "Then explode. Get angry. Break things. Scream at the sky. Whatever you need." He turned to look at her. Gray eyes meeting gray eyes. "But do not let the anger eat you alive. That is how they win. The ones who hurt you. The ones who want you silent. They win if you let the anger destroy you." "How do I stop it?" Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "You do not stop it. You use it. You take that anger and you turn it into something. Something that helps you. Something that helps others like you. I do not know what that looks like for you, but you will find it. Because you are my daughter, and Harrisons do not quit." Ellie leaned against her father's shoulder, the same way she did when she was a little girl, afraid of thunderstorms. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Ellie. Always." They sat together as the sun went down. Father and daughter, survivor and witness. The war was over, but Eleanor Harrison's battle was just beginning. Because somewhere in Washington, her file was being sealed. Somewhere in Virginia, Werner Chrysler was being offered a job with the Department of Defense. Somewhere in Argentina, Helga Brenner was starting a new life under a false name. And somewhere in Ellie's heart, a promise was forming. A promise to remember. A promise to write everything down. A promise to wait as long as it took. The truth would come out. No matter how long it took, no matter what it cost. The truth would come out. In Part 4, the final chapter, you will witness the 60 years of silence. The nightmares that never stopped. The marriages that failed. The files that were finally declassified. And the moment when Eleanor Harrison's granddaughter opened a tin box in an attic and discovered a story that her government tried to bury forever. Some secrets refuse to stay buried. Some women refuse to be forgotten. And some promises are worth keeping for a lifetime. December 1943. 4 American women captured behind enemy lines. 15 months in Facility 9. Protocol 27. Torture designed by men who believed women had no place in war. But Eleanor Harrison and her sisters did not break. They built a network of whispers, names in darkness, Morse code through concrete walls. A sisterhood that Colonel Werner Chrysler could not shatter. April 1945. Liberation. American soldiers broke down the gates. 30 survivors walked out of hell. And then the second betrayal. Their own government forced them to sign confidentiality agreements. Silence or destruction. Choose. They all signed. They all went home. They all disappeared from history. For 60 years, Eleanor Harrison kept her promise. She stayed silent. She carried the weight alone. She watched her torturers walk free, while she was forbidden to speak their names. But she never stopped writing, never stopped remembering, never stopped waiting. And this is how her story ends. The years after the war were supposed to be about healing. They were not. Ellie tried. God knows she tried. She took a job at a radio station in Amarillo, same skills she used in the WAC. Morse code, communications, the familiar rhythm of dots and dashes. It helped. Sometimes. She met Daniel Mitchell in 1947, petroleum engineer. Kind eyes, gentle hands. He courted her properly. Flowers, dinners, long walks through wheat fields at sunset. They married in the spring of 1948. White dress. Church ceremony. Her father crying in the front pew. For 6 months it was almost normal. Then the nightmares started again. Ellie would wake screaming, drenched in sweat, certain that Helga Brenner was standing in the doorway, certain she was back in the processing room with the bright lights and the cameras and the hands that would not stop. Daniel tried to help. He held her, talked to her, begged her to tell him what happened over there. She could not. "I want to help you," he said one night. 3 years into the marriage, both of them exhausted, both of them breaking. "But you will not let me in. You will not tell me what happened." "I cannot," Ellie's voice cracked. "I am not allowed." "That is not a marriage, Ellie. That is 2 strangers sharing a house." He was not wrong. The divorce was quiet. 1951. No children. Daniel remarried 2 years later. Had 3 kids. Lived what appeared to be a happy life. Ellie did not begrudge him. She had given him nothing to hold on to. She never remarried. The other survivors scattered across the world, each carrying the same weight, each bound by the same silence. Maggie Crawford returned to England, married an RAF pilot named Charles. They tried for children, could not. The damage from Facility 9 was internal, permanent. Doctors could not explain it. Maggie could not tell them where to look. "Charles is patient," she wrote to Ellie in 1952. "But I see the questions in his eyes. Questions I cannot answer. Sometimes I think the silence is worse than what they did to us." Dorothy Kowalski became a nurse in Chicago. Spent 40 years caring for others. Never cared for herself. Never married. Never told her mother what happened. Died in 1989 with the secret still locked inside her. Frances Chen worked for a bank in San Francisco. Quiet life. Solitary life. But every night she wrote in journals. Names, dates, details, everything she memorized through the walls of Facility 9. "They can classify paper," she told Ellie during a rare visit in 1960. "They cannot classify what is in my head. Someday these journals will matter." She was right. Betty Jean Morrison never recovered. Not fully. The senator's daughter who joined the WAC to prove something returned home a ghost. She lived with her parents until they died. Then, alone. She spoke rarely. Smiled never. In 1975, she walked into the ocean near Savannah and did not walk out. Her body was found 3 days later. No note, no explanation needed. When Ellie heard the news, she locked herself in her room for a week. Did not eat. Did not sleep. Just sat in darkness whispering names. First Lieutenant Betty Jean Morrison, service number D273954, Atlanta, Georgia. Over and over, like a prayer, like an apology. Colette Moreau stayed in France, returned to teaching. Never spoke of the war, never spoke of her husband shot by the Gestapo, never spoke of Facility 9. She died of cancer in 1967, carried her secrets to the grave. One by one, the survivors disappeared. Age, illness, accidents, suicide. By 1980, only 12 remained. By 1990, only 8. By 2000, only 5. Ellie watched them go, each death a piece of the truth dying with them. But she did not die. She could not die. Not yet. Because she had made a promise, not just to her father, to herself, to the women who did not make it. Someone had to remember. Someone had to write it down. Someone had to wait. And while Eleanor Harrison waited, Werner Kreisler lived very well indeed. Operation Paperclip. The classified program that brought Nazi scientists to America after the war. Rocket engineers, aviation experts, medical researchers, and psychologists. Kreisler arrived in Virginia in 1947. New name, new identity, new employer, the United States Department of Defense. His expertise, advanced interrogation methodology. The same techniques he developed at Facility 9, the same protocols he tested on American women, now applied to Cold War enemies, Korean War prisoners, Vietnamese detainees. Protocol 27 did not die with Nazi Germany. It evolved. It spread. It became doctrine. Ellie discovered this in 1962. A magazine article about German scientists working for the American government. One name made her blood freeze. Dr. Werner Kreisler, psychology specialist, currently consulting for the Department of Defense. She wrote letters to senators, to the FBI, to anyone who would listen. No one listened. Finally, a phone call. An unnamed official with a cold voice. Lieutenant Harrison, I advise you to cease your inquiries. Dr. Kreisler provides valuable services to national security. And may I remind you that you signed a confidentiality agreement regarding your wartime experiences. The threat was clear. Kreisler died in 1987, peacefully, in his sleep, surrounded by family, 88 years old, government pension, no charges, no trial, no justice. Ellie read his obituary in the newspaper. It described him as a pioneering researcher and dedicated public servant. She threw the paper in the fire. Helga Brenner fared almost as well. She escaped to Argentina in 1946. New name, new life. Married a German expatriate, raised 2 children, lived in a comfortable house in Buenos Aires. She died in 1971. Also peaceful, also surrounded by family. No one ever knocked on her door. No one ever called her by her real name. No one ever asked about the women she helped torture in 15 secret facilities across Nazi Germany. Justice never found her. But memory did. The breakthrough came in 1995. The Cold War ended. Archives opened. Documents surfaced. Soviet forces had captured records from several SS facilities before the Germans could destroy everything. For 50 years, these documents sat in East German storage, untranslated, unexamined. Among them, training manuals for Protocol 27, personnel files for SS officers, and most importantly, Werner Kreisler's research reports. Clinical documentation, subject numbers instead of names, detailed observations of psychological breaking points, recommendations for enhanced processing techniques. Subject 17 appeared frequently. Kreisler's notes described her as unusually resistant and requiring specialized attention. Subject 17 was Eleanor Harrison. Professor Helen Richards found these documents while researching women prisoners of World War II. She spent 3 years tracking down survivors, conducting interviews, piecing together a story that had been buried for half a century. In 1997, she published her book, The Forgotten Soldiers, Women Prisoners of World War II, and the Silence Imposed Upon Them. It caused a minor sensation in academic circles, Reviews praised its thorough research. Historians called it a crucial addition to the historical record. The general public barely noticed, but the survivors noticed. For the first time in 50 years, someone believed them. Someone documented what happened. Someone said their names out loud. Ellie read the book in one sitting. 12 hours, no breaks. Tears streaming down her face. She called Professor Richards the next morning. "Thank you," she said. Her voice cracked. "Thank you for telling our story." "The story is not finished," Richards replied. "There needs to be official recognition from the government that silenced you. They will never admit what they did. Maybe not, but we can make them try." The campaign took 4 years. Letters to Congress, petitions, interviews with journalists. Slowly, pressure built. Slowly, the silence cracked. In 2001, the United States government held a ceremony. Quiet. No press. No public announcement. Just a small room in Washington and the surviving women who had been forbidden to speak for 56 years. 8 survivors. 8 women out of hundreds who passed through the 15 facilities. Ellie was 82, wheelchair-bound, body failing, mind still sharp as a blade. Maggie Crawford flew from England, also 82. They held hands like they did in the darkness of Facility 9. 2 old women who had once been young soldiers. A general presented medals, Purple Hearts, long overdue, certificates of recognition, official apologies wrapped in careful bureaucratic language. When Ellie's turn came to speak, she rose from her wheelchair. Maggie helped steady her. "For 50 years we were told to be silent," she said. Her voice was thin but clear. "They said it was for national security, but the truth is they were ashamed, not of what the enemy did to us. They were ashamed that they did not protect us. And then they were ashamed that they made us disappear." She paused, gathering strength. "We were soldiers. We served our country. And when we needed our country most, it turned its back on us." Her eyes swept the room. "We are not grateful. We are not quiet. We are angry. And we have every right to be." Silence. "But more than anger, we have pride, because they did not break us. Not the Germans with their protocols, not our own government with its secrets. We survived. We remembered who we were. And now finally the world knows too." The room rose to its feet. Applause. Tears. Generals weeping openly. Maggie leaned close. "We did it. We lived long enough to see this day." Ellie squeezed her hand. "It is not enough. It will never be enough. But it is something." That night, Ellie returned to Texas, to the farmhouse in Amarillo. The same house where she made her promise 60 years ago. She sat on the porch, watched the stars, thought about her father, about all the women who did not live to see this day. She was tired, so tired, but there was one more thing to do. She climbed to the attic, found the loose floorboard, placed the tin box inside. Journal, letters, metal, everything. Then she wrote a final note. Left it with her will. "For Catherine, when I am gone, open the box. Tell the full story. I kept my promise to my father. Now I am passing the promise to you." Ellie died on October 15, 2006, 90 years old, in her sleep, face peaceful. Catherine Harrison Mitchell found the box 3 hours after the funeral. Rusted tin, loose floorboard, leather journal, faded letters, Purple Heart. She opened the journal. "If someone is reading these words, it means I am dead, and the truth can finally be told." Catherine read through the night, every page, every word, the full account of what her grandmother endured, what her government tried to bury, what Eleanor Harrison refused to let die. By dawn, she understood. She understood the nightmares, the failed marriage, the silences that lasted decades, the weight her grandmother carried every single day. She understood the promise. and she knew what she had to do. The documentary aired in 2012. Catherine worked with historians, filmmakers, and the families of other survivors. They gathered testimonies, compiled documents, built an archive that could never be classified. The women they tried to erase won 3 awards, screened at festivals worldwide, taught in university courses. Millions of people finally heard the names: Eleanor Harrison, Dorothy Kowalski, Frances Chen, Betty Jean Morrison, Margaret Crawford, Colette Moreau, and hundreds more whose stories had been locked away for 60 years. The film ended with Ellie's own words recorded by Professor Richards in 1996. "They could take our uniforms. They could take our dignity. They could take our voices for 50 years. But they could never take who we were. We were soldiers." First Lieutenant Eleanor Harrison, service number A742893, Amarillo, Texas. "I served. I survived. I came home." There is one more thing most people do not know. In 2018, researchers discovered additional files in a private collection, letters written by Thomas Harrison during the years his daughter was missing, sent to every government agency he could find, begging for information, demanding answers. They were all returned unopened, but one letter stood out, dated April 1945, 3 days before Ellie's liberation. Thomas did not know she was about to be freed, did not know if she was alive or dead. He wrote, "To whoever reads this, my daughter Eleanor is somewhere in Europe. I do not know where. I do not know if she is alive. But I know this: she made me a promise before she left. She said she would come home, and Harrisons keep their promises, so I will keep writing. I will keep asking. I will keep believing, until she walks through that door, or until I die trying." He signed it, Thomas Harrison, father, Amarillo, Texas. Ellie never saw this letter. It was classified along with everything else. But Catherine found it in 2018, 73 years after it was written. She framed it, hung it next to her grandmother's Purple Heart. 2 promises, father and daughter, both kept. Some people ask why this story matters. The war ended 80 years ago. The survivors are gone. The torturers are dead. Why dig up old pain? Because 500 women were systematically tortured in 15 secret facilities. And for 60 years, their own government told them to shut up. Because Werner Chrysler lived comfortably on a government pension, while the women he experimented on woke screaming every night. Because Helga Brenner raised children in Argentina, while Betty Jean Morrison walked into the ocean. Because silence is how evil wins. And because Eleanor Harrison refused to let silence have the last word. She could not speak for 50 years. So she wrote. Every night, every detail, every name, filling notebooks that she hid in an attic waiting for the day when someone would find them. That is not weakness. That is not victimhood. That is resistance. The same resistance that kept her alive in Facility 9. The same resistance that built networks through concrete walls. The same resistance that whispered names in darkness when everything else had been taken away. Eleanor Harrison was a soldier, not just in 1943, every day of her life. And now her story belongs to history. From a farm girl in Texas to a communications officer in Italy, from prisoner to survivor, from silenced witness to documented truth. Eleanor Harrison proved that some secrets refuse to stay buried. Some women refuse to be forgotten. Some promises are worth keeping for a lifetime. 500 women, 15 facilities, 60 years of silence, and one tin box in an attic that changed everything. If you know someone who served and never spoke about what they saw, listen to them. If you find old letters or journals from veterans in your family, preserve them. If you hear stories that seem too painful to be true, believe them. Because the Eleanor Harrisons of history are everywhere, silent, waiting, hoping that someday someone will find their truth and set it free. This is just one story. There are thousands more. Soldiers who saw things they could not speak. Nurses who witnessed horrors they could not report. Prisoners who endured treatment that no Geneva Convention could address. Their stories matter. Their names matter. Their courage matters. In memory of the women of the Women's Army Corps Air Transport Auxiliary and resistance movements across Europe. For those who survived captivity, only to be silenced. For those who carried secrets to their graves. For Eleanor Margaret Dorothy, Frances Colette, Betty Jean, and hundreds like them. May their sacrifice finally be acknowledged. 1943 to 2025. From Darkness into Light. And to Eleanor Harrison. Wherever you are now, you kept your promise. You came home. And you made sure the world would never forget. First Lieutenant Eleanor Harrison, United States Women's Army Corps. Service number A742893. Amarillo, Texas. You served. You survived. You told the truth. And that truth will echo forever.